So as per typical Volkswagen, of course, overnight and it's barely changed. It might be down an inch. So I'm gonna fiddle around for a bit with some of the pipes and see if I can get the airlock to release and get the rest of the coolant going into it. So by the time we get other things wrapped up, it'll all be air bled and we'll be ready to fire it up and run it up to temperature. I tried this main rad hose last night and there's no coolant there and it didn't let any air out either, so maybe try the thermostat one there. What I'm probably going to have to do, which is what I have to do with the Mark IIs, is pour coolant into the block side of there and into the rad side of here and then stuff it together to get the whole thing full, because of course the thermostat won't open to let air or coolant through for bleeding purposes. So see how that goes, and then we'll get back to putting stuff together on the back side of the engine. Alright, so I was able to get most of the coolant that I took out back in by pouring it actually into the that pipe there from the exhaust cooler. I took back up and stuck up in the air, took back off and stuck up in the air and filled it. The reservoir is still over full, but as soon as the coolant flow starts circulating, that should drop. So let's get back to wrapping stuff up here. The exhaust cooler, I think, is ready to be tightened. The only thing I was concerned about is whether the pipe that has to go between the exhaust cooler and the exhaust manifold wouldn't line up if I tighten it up first. But I think we'll try it and see how it goes. Hopefully it won't be an issue. But yeah, so I'll go through. This is the last cap screw for the 3 that hold the cooler to the manifold. Go through and anti-seize all of them, put them on there, and then mounting cap screws. We're pretty sure they're M6, 7 foot-pounds, which is the 84 inch-pounds. So I'll do up those mounting cap screws to 7, and then that elbow that goes from the cooler to that top flange on the manifold. Those ones are okay, the nuts on the, because it's nuts on the studs on the manifold of the exhaust manifold. Those ones are the same as all the other nuts, 18 foot-pounds or 2 16 inch-pounds. And the bolts for the other end of it, cap screws, are actually the same, 18 foot-pounds as well. So these cap screws there are 18 and the nuts on the manifold are 18. And I've got new metal gaskets for both of those. I'm not going to bother with any new gaskets for the actual EGR mounting right now because I've got a new EGR coming. We still have to clean up the old one just to be able to put it back on for now. So yeah, I'm gonna buzz through. We'll get the cooler mounted and torqued up to 7, and then get the actual cooler pipe connected, and hopefully it'll line up without having to loosen the exhaust cooler or EGR cooler again. Alright, so had to run the tap through the threads on the cooler. I should have done that beforehand. I should have known with as rusted they were as they were that it would have needed to be done. But that pipe is now connected, new gaskets and torqued. So we're getting really close on the top side here now. So I think I'll go down below now and get the, I think that should be, okay. I'll go down and get the intercooler pipe connected and the intake pipe brought up to the top here. And then after that we should be able to do the rest of the intake part, the EGR and whatever, and we'll get the valve cover on sooner than later here so the RTV has some time to cure a bit before it gets heated and oiled. But yeah, won't be able to show much on the bottom side, but there's really not a whole lot to it. Like I say, get the pipe connected back to the EGR, or intercooler, try that again, and then the intake pipe from the turbo up to the top here goes up through this space to go across to the airbox. The stud that is supposed to hold the, that one there, that's supposed to hold the pipe to the intercooler up, the nut twisted the stud off when I tried to take it apart because it was a rusted mess. So I gotta figure out what I'm doing with that. May just cut that off clean and drill another hole through the plastic tube and just beside that and just thread a fastener there. It doesn't take anything to hold it up. And then it clamps back into the EGR here, or geez. Can you tell it's Sunday? The intercooler there. And then once the intake pipe is on and the EGR pipe, oh, here we go again, intercooler pipe are on, then I think that's pretty much it from the bottom side. So the CV axle can go back on and get torqued. That's going to be fun. And the CV joint shield. So let's get all those torques right now, because I'll just lapse most of this. So those, I really hope that's in the right place. But the fasteners for the intake pipe to the what is that, manifold to hold it for support. What's that going to be? Injection pump, EGR, piping, should be with this stuff. Nope. Well, I can't actually find it in the manual. I don't know why it doesn't show these fasteners for mounting the intake, but they're exactly the same size as these ones here for the EGR, and those ones are where'd the EGR go? Those ones 5 are the normal 7 foot-pounds for M6 cap screws, so that's what I'm going to go with for those that hold the intake pipe in place, and also the 3 for the EGR mounting itself, but we'll get to that when we actually mount the EGR. So I'm going to go down below and I got to take the tape off of that spigot still and get all those pipes down underneath, and probably torque up the get the axle shaft reinstalled if I think I'm done down there, and get it torqued. 14 is the bolt to the hub flange. Okay. You gotta be kidding me. They're always replaced. You gotta be freaking kidding. Pre-tighten diagonally to 7.5 and tighten to 30. I'm not replacing them. Forget it. Where is version 2? Does it say? This is version 2. What's the torque for them? 15. Oh my goodness. That's a little bit of a difference. Sure, it'd be nice to have an easy way to tell which one is which. It's special hex head. We don't have that, so I'm pretty sure. Yeah, okay, so we're version 1. We've only got the axle stub through the hub with a 12-point nut. So we are in fact going to tighten those axle bolts, or hub bolts, 14 to 30 foot-pounds. I'm not going to replace them. That's crazy. I've never replaced CV axle bolts ever, and I've never had any problems with them undoing or with them breaking. So I think that pretty much covers these guys here for the CV shield, 19 26 foot-pounds. So I'll do those up as well with more anti-seize on them once the axle's in place. And then yeah, I think that's about it. The rest of the intake piping stuff are just squeeze clamps. Speaking of which, I have to get the pipes off the roof still. And we'll try and get that all wrapped up on the bottom side so that we're getting closer to having it sealed up here. All right, so quick update here. I'm just motoring right along. I want the car done today. Okay, so the intake pipe is on and clamped, and the 2 bolts that hold it to the intake manifold are torqued, 7 foot-pounds each. The pipe from the turbo to the intercooler is installed. The spring clip is on the turbo end of it, just like the opposite end of that short pipe that I swapped, and we're spring clamped to the intercooler. And I fixed up the mounting to the frame rail, just cut the stud off, drilled it out, threaded it, and put a bolt in it. So that's all looked after. Let's go on here. And then I went ahead and put the exhaust pipe on while the axle shaft was still out of the way, because it was way easier. So new gasket, new copper nuts, and those ones were supposed to be, I think, 18 foot-pounds as well, same as all the rest of the copper nuts. So I did the bottom one that I could torque, and then I just matched the other 2 to the first one with the ratchet. The exhaust was all connected now, and then I put the CV axle on, back onto the transmission, torqued those 6 internal 12-point bolts to 30 foot-pounds. And I put the CV axle or CV joint shield back on there and torqued those to 26, I believe it was, foot-pounds. I have yet to put the ball joint and tie rod ends and whatever back together. I still have to tighten the inner tie rod end on the left, on the driver's side, but we'll do that after. Now we're gonna get, I think I got everything. Yeah, I can't think of anything else that I did underneath. Yeah, the wastegate diaphragm vacuum line is connected, and we still have to do all the lines for the EGR when I get it mounted. I just did a quick cleanup on the intake, that's not right, try it again, valve cover. Just did a quickie clean job here to get majority of the oil residue off of it, just to start fresh. It's going to likely have some again in short order, but we're going to put RTV on the gasket, even though it does have a rubber gasket or some kind of a rubber / plastic. It is 20 years old, but they never seal anyways, and you can't replace the gasket. You got to buy a whole valve cover. So I just did a quick cleanup on that outside. I'll do a wipe of the seal surface here before we put it on, and I'm going to go around and clean up the surface of the head, make it spotless, and then we can get the RTV on there and get the valve cover installed and torqued so that it's starting to cure while we finish up some other stuff before we run the engine. But it's nice. Yeah, we're getting there. Get this valve cover on, and then get the vacuum pump on and the other brackets that are associated with that, and then we'll be pretty much finished with the engine itself. Got to do the EGR, of course, install the the rest of the intake pipe and the airbox. Yeah, but it's coming along. So I'm just going to go through, let's turn this on for some light here. I'm going to go around the valve cover surface first with a shop towel and some brake clean on the towel. I'm not going to spray anything on the engine. And then I do have some basically Scotch Brite pads to take any congealed oil off without removing aluminum, because it's all aluminum, of course, as the wind blows all of the dandelion seeds into the building, of course. So let's make this quick before the engine's full of debris, any more than it already is. I think I did pretty well so far with not getting too much in here. But I don't think I'm too far away from oil change, so I'm not too worried about it. And with the new camshaft, it's probably not a bad idea anyways to do a oil change in fairly short order. We also have to do the camshaft break-in once we get it going, which I will talk about when we get to that point. And of course set the injection timing kind of last thing once it's up to temp. So yeah, let's get this valve cover on and torqued so that we can be done with that, get the vacuum pump going, and then probably move on to the EGR. I gotta clean it out still, it's over there, can't really see it. It's full of sludge still, so I gotta do a whole clean on that. Just temporary, because I've got new EGR coming next week, I think it is. So I'll, in the next week or two, I'll put the new EGR on with new gaskets, and we should be ready to roll in that respect. So yeah, let's get this done here. Alright, so as you saw there, I just made sure the cylinder head was completely spotless and no rough patches. If there is, use the Scotch Brite, not steel wire brush or sandpaper or anything crazy like that. Emery cloth, maybe. I made sure that was spotless. I tried my best to get the oil off of the valve cover seal, but didn't do a terribly fantastic job. And then I took the time to do a good bead all the way around the entire perimeter of the valve cover, including over the bearing caps. And it's sitting in position there now. And the torque for the valve cover, they don't call it that, of course. It's cylinder head cover to cylinder head, M6, which is correct, 89 inch-pounds. So I'm gonna go 45 first on all of them, working from the center out, just like I've done on other things. 45. And get this kind of tightened down before our RTV sets. Of course, I can't find. Go in the bolt. It's really not that difficult. Alright, valve cover is done. Minimal skin removed. One bolt casualty, which I will address another time. If I had another bolt handy, I could just swap it right now, but I was able to torque it is the biggest thing, and undoing it shouldn't be an issue later on. So there's nothing I can do about the timing end of the valve cover as far as RTV oozing out, but on the other end here, actually it's not too bad. Just want to make sure that there isn't any excess that's going to cause problems for the vacuum pump, although we are going to put a bead on the vacuum pump as well, because I know it doesn't seal anyways. I do have a new O-ring, but there's not even any point in putting it on. So I'm just going to do the same thing, same procedure now for the vacuum pump itself. Do a quick clean up on the head, although it's already pretty good. Do a quick clean on the O-ring there, and then cover it with RTV. And then now if I can find vacuum pump to cylinder head, I think the 3 bolts are all the same size. We're looking at 15 foot-pounds each. So that's the bolts that are, you can't see them up in the cowl there from before. 2 of them have the stud out of the head of the bolt to be able to put brackets on. Actually, I could probably, I'll move the camera around here so it's actually focusing on what I'm doing, but that's the plan. Clean RTV, bolts, torque, 15 foot-pounds, and then we can put the brackets on for, I think it's for vacuum lines or whatever. Alright, so vacuum pump is installed and torqued. One thing I forgot to mention about putting it on, the flat drive on the vacuum pump has to line up with that slot on the camshaft that we've been using for valve timing. So it's a bit of a playing game and try and line it up before you put it in. The problem is there isn't enough clearance between these coolant preheaters and the cylinder head to really get the pump in there. I don't know if it would be any better if you took these off, but I wouldn't recommend touching them because chances are they're going to completely crumble to nothing if you twist them or pop them too much. So I just tried to get the drive close to where I thought it was supposed to be, and then you got to squeeze it in past the heaters there between the head, and then you can kind of release the pressure and turn it a little bit and try it, and eventually you get it to fall in. And I just tried to get it close to the right place to start with so that the RTV wasn't getting smeared all over the place. There was some oil in the lower part by the little oil passage hole when I was putting the RTV on, so it's probably not going to seal too well, but it'll be better than without. So that's got that torqued. I just have to put the little brackets on those 2 studs that are sticking out there now, which I think are mainly for the vacuum line for the vacuum diaphragm. One of these clips is broken. I don't think I have an extra. This is one of the ones that pops over the bracket there. This guy here. I think it's supposed to go like that, slides over, that pops in, and this is supposed to slide over, but it's broken. But that goes over the studs, and then there's a couple of little nuts on there. I don't know about the torque on those little nuts. Not too sure on those, but they're just M6 studs, so the one of them you can't even get a torque wrench on. The other one I will do the 7 foot-pounds, I think is what the other M6s have been. And that'll be about it. We'll fish the vacuum line back through where it's supposed to be, get the vacuum pump mounted up, or vacuum, let's try that again, vacuum diaphragm bulb reservoir. And then, yeah, that's about it for this side of the engine. We can actually get we might as well get the air box and air pipe and all the plugs and everything back on. We still got to get the one plug here is for the vacuum valve that clips to the intake there, which it's over on the bench there. It needs a new piece of line put on it, so I'll do that and it can get mounted. But yeah, we're getting close here finally. few little things to wrap up yet. There are actually, at least on the, of course, the arrow for direction of flow into the engine, there's actually notches right here. There's a notch on, or a rib on the tube, and a little notch on the other pipe to tell you where to line them up. This one not so much, but you're just making sure that it's not twisted basically. So that's got the airbox installed. I still got to tighten that cap screw, and our MAF sensor plug is back on. These two plugs are for the one's for the PCV sensor there, and the other one's for that vacuum valve that I mentioned before that clips onto the intake. So we'll let's bring this in here again. We will try and get those other lines replaced that are for the EGR. Gonna sit there, probably not. Fish these back across. That's supposed to be in there. This one is as simple as this. I should blow it out first. Grease everywhere. It did actually have grease in it. Good. I probably did that before. Like that.